This is episode 119, Why Monotasking Totally Enhances Your Life. Some people consider multitasking like a badge of honor, but it can actually splinter your mind, causing lots of stress and stunting your personal growth. Doing one thing at a time, or monotasking, paradoxically allows more productivity and efficiency, peace of mind, and personal growth. Hi, I'm Carla Rieger, and this is the Mind Story Speaker Podcast. Now, if you really think about it, most of your life is made up of repetitive tasks. Often the same tasks you did yesterday and the day before and the decade before and so on. Putting away clothes, washing dishes, grocery shopping, preparing a meal, checking messages. Giving your full attention, especially to things you've done many times before, is far more life-enhancing than maybe many of us realize. Of course, some things naturally absorb more of our attention, like watching a psychological thriller movie, where you stop eating the popcorn, it's halfway to your mouth, and you hold it there while you see if the guy can escape the bullets, jump on the wing of the plane, break a window, and climb in before dying. Or you're driving and you come to your destination, but you can't quite find the correct address, so you turn down the music because you need to focus. But if you've done a task many times before, people often feel drawn to multitask. I know I do. And sometimes it's appropriate, or you have to, given the circumstances, and in some cases it might even help the task at hand. But sometimes, and more often than we think, it actually creates an ongoing low-level agitation and mind splintering that also makes you less effective at the task and can stunt your personal development. A Zen master was once asked by a disciple, "What is the essence of Zen?" The master said, "Zen is doing one thing at a time." That's all he said. It allows an inner empowerment to come out of the conditioning of our mind, of all the consciousness bias we have, out of the repetitive programs that run us day to day. And it's harder to be discerning, to make wise choices, small and large, when our minds are splintered in several directions. We just fall into old patterns and get duped the same way into thinking, doing, or feeling in some ways that may not be good for you or others. Of course, we often think of multitasking as something like the woman who's talking on the phone while feeding the baby, while making dinner, while checking email, while trying to get her nylons on. But there are other types of multitasking you may not realize you are doing. For example, when you alternate between different tasks and never really finish any of them. Like you half respond to an email and then answer the phone, and then the doorbell rings while you're on the phone, and then you decide you need to find something in another room, and you get to the other room and you can't remember what you were looking for. Then there's where you're splitting your time between larger, more complex, say, higher priority tasks, and consistent interruptions from lower priority, less time-consuming tasks that arrive via email or text or message or face-to-face interruptions. And if you allow these interruptions to pull your attention away, you're essentially spending the entire day multitasking. The problem is there's this opportunity cost every time you let an interruption take your attention away. So you half wrote an email, and then you get back to the email and you can't remember what you wanted to say. So you have to reread the whole email again and think through what you wanted to say again, and it takes so much more time. And then you go back to your bigger task, like writing a proposal, and you can't remember where you left off, so that takes 5 minutes. And then you can't get back the flow you're in anymore. You've lost your motivation to stay focused, and so it becomes easier to just check those messages once again. The monotasking approach would be to, say, separate small, quick, low-priority tasks, like emails and responding to messages, into one time of the day, doing a whole batch at a time. not even looking at the messages as they come in, just focusing them all on one time of the day. It's likely more enjoyable, less irritating, less fracturing, and more effective in terms of the communication you're doing because your full attention is on it. Now, another type of multitasking is less noticeable. It's where you're just focused on one thing, like making a salad, but your mind is in the future thinking of all the things you have to buy at the store tomorrow. Or you're running an online meeting and someone is talking, but you're thinking about this other meeting you need to be ready for, like right after this one, and you hope this one doesn't go on too long, so you miss what the person was saying. And then they say to you, "So, what do you think?" And you're like, "Oh, that sounds fine." And all of a sudden, you've just agreed to the meeting going 30 minutes longer, or casual Fridays, or something you really don't want. In contrast, when you're giving full attention to others and what they want to say, people feel heard, they sense it. The communication all around with everyone goes up exponentially. The meeting is often more effective, more efficient, ends on time, and people are less likely to be multitasking themselves during the meeting. So that's an example of monotasking as a group leader, just staying completely focused on the agenda and the people talking. Or have you ever watched someone address a large group of people, like at a live event or a seminar or a conference, and they seem uncomfortable? They're likely multitasking as a speaker. They're maybe thinking about how badly they did when addressing a group last time, or they notice a group of people talking amongst themselves as they speak, and they start second-guessing their ability as a public speaker or their content. In contrast, when you see a speaker who is really engaging the audience, they're likely giving full attention to the audience and what they want to convey. They're monotasking as a speaker. They're not thinking about how they did last time. If they see people talking amongst themselves, they just refocus themselves on people who are listening. And that full expression as a speaker tends to draw all the people who've gotten sidelined back onto the message of the speaker. So what happens in all these examples is your mind is splitting into different timelines. Like making a salad, one aspect of you is in the present and one aspect is in a tomorrow timeline. Or running the online meeting, one aspect is in the present timeline, but most of you is 45 minutes in the future on a future timeline, worrying about the meeting ending on time. Or in the case of speaking to a group, one aspect is in the present timeline and one is 2 months ago when you were speaking before. Or you've gone into an inner timeline where you're listening to the inner critic instead of listening to your audience as you speak. So it's like 1 foot in one timeline and 1 foot in another. And there's 2 timelines going at once, or maybe even more. And sometimes there's inner timelines and outer ones. Our minds are powerful, but if we let them run amok, they'll go all over the place like an untrained puppy. So maybe you've experienced some of that kind of phenomena. I was just joking around with someone about all these ways we can multitask. She gave this example. She was running a meeting and someone new to the meeting said something, and the person reminded her of her dad, who is no longer alive. And then she jumped like a decade back to her last interaction with him before he passed away. And then someone in the meeting laughed and it jolted her back to the present. And then she jumped into the future again because she saw the meeting was going overtime. So she secretly tried to message the person she was supposed to meet with after this. And then someone criticized her for not paying attention, which triggered the survival brain into being back in the present moment. She apologized, but soon after the danger was over, she went right back into jumping inner timelines again. So, of course, many of us are jumping timelines like that often. You might even be thinking, heck, that's a typical day for me. But it's just good to know the costs involved and what happens inside your mind-body system when you do that, what happens to your relationships with other people, because you do have a choice about how you want to train and focus your attention. In fact, your attention is your most valuable resource in your life, because whatever you focus on grows. And sometimes that focus gives good results, but sometimes not so good results. especially when it's fractured. In contrast, think of a time when you fully focused your attention on something. Often people are completely absorbed when doing something creative, such as brainstorming at a problem-solving meeting, or drawing, or painting, or writing, or singing, or playing music. Then there's also times when you're doing something that requires your full attention because it's a mind-body coordination thing, like playing a high-speed game of hockey or tennis or basketball or dancing across the floor with a partner. And most people say they love those kinds of activities. They say, they're fun, they're so engaging, they feel really energized afterwards, they look forward to doing it again. And mostly that's because it forces you to be present in one timeline, in the here and now. And that creates a huge sense of inner congruence, inner peace, inner alignment that settles the whole nervous system and aligns you to a strong sense of personal power because everything is flowing in one direction. So back to the Zen example, the disciple didn't like the answer that Zen is doing one thing at a time. He figured it's got to be more complicated than that. So the disciple said, look, I'm going to go find another monastery and another master unless you can give me a fuller answer. And the Zen master said, okay, Zen is attention. That's it. The disciple was looking for something more complex, like a huge mental concept. But the Zen master was attempting actually to break him free of mental concepts, because the answer to all that you are, the answer to the secrets of the universe, is that the microcosm is also the macrocosm, as above, so below. The answer to all of the secrets of the universe are not to be found through conceptual thinking. What conceptual thinking can do is relatively little. And human evolution has now reached a critical stage where we cannot further develop based on refining conceptual thinking. We've come to the end of the road of this conceptual, rational, linear, logical, technical explanations for things alone. These are just representations and not felt real-time aligned experience. So one example of conceptual thinking is putting words together in different ways, but there are limited numbers of letters in the alphabet and a limited number of sounds that can come out of the voice and a limited number of ways you can put together words in a book or on a computer screen. And we've been living in this information age. It actually started before computers and internet, but now we're moving into another age. And a big reason is because now we're on information overload. And more information actually clogs up the mind, splinters the mind, and renders us inert at a certain profound level. What's required now, what the new age is about, is meaning. What does all that information mean? And that requires synthesizing multidimensional levels of information using the mind, emotions, body, spirit, ether, distilling it down into something that helps you and others grow and evolve. That's a whole other intense skill set that requires what the Zen master said. All cylinders firing in one direction, on one timeline. In other words, focused attention on one thing. Because the opposite is what's happening now in almost an epidemic way, where you have 33 windows open on your computer and you go from one page to the other, then to your phone, then to your tablet, then you answer the door, you go to the bathroom, taking your phone with you in case you miss an important text. And the more you scatter your focus like that, the more your efficiency goes down, scatters your human attention, which degrades your personal power. In fact, the average adult attention span used to be around 7 minutes. And that was 30 years ago. A person could completely focus their attention for a good 7 minutes before they needed to take a mental break. They just couldn't focus anymore. They had to go into the past or the future, or they're like the dog seeing the squirrel. Now I've heard it's more like 20 seconds. That's 20 seconds and then the mind can't focus anymore. And that's because we've been training our brain in this splintered focus through all this technology. So human evolution is not about completely abandoning conceptual thinking, but to be able to use conceptual thinking without being trapped in it or by it. It's where you own it. It doesn't own you. You can transcend it, go beyond it, but it's still there. You can use it like a tool when necessary. So the true cost of multitasking isn't just that it lowers productivity, but it impacts your mental, emotional, spiritual health and your evolution. Now, I know some people say that multitasking actually makes them more productive, and given their circumstance, it's the only way to get through the day. So I get that, and I do that. And there's a certain mental gymnastics involved that can be helpful to build, like building a muscle, because sometimes we just do have to multitask. So I'm not saying never do it, but pay attention to when you are doing it to your detriment, when you don't actually need to be doing it. So if you study psychological tests on multitasking, you'll find that several researchers say it actually makes you more productive, that the time it takes to stop doing one task and focus on another is best measured in milliseconds. But in studying myself and helping several clients who are addicted to multitasking, I can't actually agree with that. Unless the tasks are very simple, that kind of task, you could do it in your sleep. A more accurate study says that it actually takes 23 minutes to refocus after an interruption. It comes from a research study conducted by Gloria Mark, Daniela Gudith, and Ulrich Klock. In the study, 48 participants had one main task to focus on, but they were also directed to deal with other tasks as they came in, such as interruptions from email. And when interrupted, an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds passed between the amount of interruption and the point where the participants resumed working on the main task. Now, the 23 minutes isn't the amount of time it takes to refocus after switching tasks. It includes the time it takes to complete the task that interrupted you. And although a 23-minute pause due to an interruption isn't an insignificant amount of time, the researchers discovered something interesting. The people who were interrupted managed to complete their main task in less time than people who weren't interrupted. They assumed that when people are constantly interrupted, they develop a motive to work faster to compensate for the time they know they will lose by being interrupted. And that's part of why multitasking can often make you feel stressed out. So say you said you were going to work on your book for 2 hours, but you get a notification that an email came in, and instead of ignoring it, you read it and you respond to it, and that takes 15 minutes, and then it takes you 5 minutes to get back into your book writing, and now you're feeling a bit agitated because you just took 20 minutes out of your allotted 2 hours that you were going to focus on the book. Guilt, maybe even shame, frustration can start to affect your ability to concentrate. Self-judgment comes in, and then your focus is split again. If you just stay completely focused for 2 hours, not allowing notifications or anyone interrupting you, you would have come out of that 2 hours feeling better, more proud of yourself, less frustration, more at ease. More likely your writing would be better because you were entirely focused. All your creativity could come out because you were relaxed. So interrupting work might be done faster because you start to rush to catch up. You may feel more stress, frustration, workload, and pressure, and self-judgment. And you're less likely to feel as though you were productive if you let interruptions get in the way. On the other hand, you're more likely to be in a better mood if you allowed yourself to just stay focused for the amount of time you allotted. So here are 6 tips to help you monotask. The first one is about notifications. I just don't allow notifications unless it's something I really need to be notified about. And in that case, there's some apps like Daywise that allows you to batch notifications at a time when you specify, but also allowing in certain ones that could bypass the batching, like from your child's school or your boss. Now, this may be a bit radical for some people, but I literally have my phone, tablet, computer turned off, completely off, during certain hours of the day, like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I certainly would never keep a device in my bedroom on and lighting up during those hours. The second is about email. Boomerang is an extension for Gmail and Outlook that lets you set up a delivery schedule for when emails are delivered to your inbox. And you can also schedule emails to be sent at a different time. I actually don't even open my email until a certain time in the day where I've done all my inner centering work and I've worked out and I've meditated. And then I open email. I don't go straight to email or text first thing in the morning. I don't think that's a good idea for anyone because, again, it'll start splintering and fracturing your mind, and then you'll kind of stay in that mode the rest of the day. So the monotasking approach would be to separate small, quick, low priority tasks like email or messaging into one time of the day or like 2 times of the day, like 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and doing a batch at a time and then going back to other projects and not having notifications or your email programs open. The third is about exploring your underlying thoughts about why you multitask in the first place. So you can use journaling or any kind of self-coaching process. For example, we offer the AVARA model in our book, Mind, Story, Inner Coach. It's a 5-step process to help explore mindsets to keep you wanting to multitask, because often we don't even know what they are. They're subconscious, they're driving you, and if you see them, that 5-step process can help you also create a new mind story about how you deal with interruptions, which becomes your new default. So you can see a link in the show notes to the Mind Story Inner Coach book, or go to our free tab at mindstoryacademy.com. So here are typical beliefs and attitudes that keep people multitasking even when the cost is high. One popular one is feeling like you're going to miss out if you don't check out on social media and messages regularly. Number 2 is worried that people will be disappointed or frustrated or mad if you don't get back to them right away. Number 3 is wanting to distract yourself constantly so that you don't have to feel feelings that need processing. But if you don't look at them, process them, see what wisdom might be there for you, that can mean mental, emotional, or physical issues down the line. By exploring these deeper beliefs, attitudes, concerns, habits of mind that run you, that are more subconscious, you might find that they don't actually serve you or don't make much logical sense, all of which, by discovering that, can unlock something important for you to understand and put into action. Maybe you'll discover that 99% of the time, life will be fine if you wait to check on things, or if you wait to get back to people. Maybe you'll discover that this gnawing anxiety is about your wellness being compromised because of all the multitasking, and that you sense it might be leading to bad consequences if you don't address it now. Maybe you'll discover that this underlying discomfort you're trying to get away from is really about needing to rethink a big aspect of life, and that if you don't, you'll miss out on changing your life in important ways moving forward. Now, the fourth is about communicating with others. I realize some people are on call or need to be available to bosses or clients or loved ones, but really think through how to create some boundaries around when people can reach you, at least during some periods of time. Otherwise, you're simply a slave to other people's agendas. For example, can someone tag team you when it comes to looking after others? Or can you give part of the workload to someone else? Can someone act as a buffer between you and people who want to contact you, like an assistant or a virtual assistant who can decide what's high priority and what isn't? Can you tell certain people that might be likely to interrupt you throughout the day that you're just not available during certain periods of time unless it's an emergency? Tell them it's for your well-being, not because you don't care about them or their situations. If it's face-to-face interruptions, you can tell people nearby when you want to focus, like not to be interrupted during this certain time of day. Or put something on your door, if you have a door, where you have a separate workspace requesting people don't interrupt you unless it's an emergency, like from 1 to 3 p.m. Now, the fifth is about your choices when it comes to especially mundane or repetitive tasks like daily tasks or activity, where you try doing one thing at a time instead. It might seem weird or irritating or awkward at first, but say just fold the laundry without talking on the phone. Like just completely focus on folding in the best way possible. Going for a walk and not listening to anything, just taking in the scenery and the sounds. Really listening to someone who's talking to you, giving them your full attention, even if you think you know what they're going to say. And the sixth and final is about making a game of it. Like if you find your mind wandering while you're, say, making the salad, imagine it's the first time that you ever made a salad. You marvel at how you can cut the celery with the knife in different kinds of ways. And you think about how you can be even more efficient with how you deliver the celery into the bowl, or how creative you can get in how you arrange the vegetables in the bowl. So just for fun, turn it into a creative project. So it's just about practicing doing tasks you've done, say, 1,000 times before to see if you can practice doing it for the first time and just see if new ideas come to mind, new skills. And then see if the salad actually tastes better than when you do it in a distracted, multitasking state of mind. Be like a child exploring the world. So remember a time you watched a small child as they discovered a door handle and how it could actually turn one way and the other. Or remember a time you discovered something for the first time when you were younger that you now consider commonplace, like driving a car. So I hope that was helpful. I'll leave you with this thought on attention, which kind of summarizes what I said today. The quality of one's life depends on the quality of attention. Whatever you pay attention to will grow more important in your life. It will give back to you in seen and unseen ways, for good or for bad, depending on how you focus your mind. If you focus on all the ways you have a great life, you'll get more of that. If you focus on all the ways you don't have a great life, you'll get more of that. If you feel agitated because you keep choosing to put your attention on more than one thing, you'll miss out on the creative flow, the synchronicity and power of being focused in the moment, in the present moment for an extended period of time where it grows stronger and stronger, where your personal power grows and grows and grows. So there's no limit to the kinds of changes that the simple act of focusing your attention can produce in your life. It's a superpower. Use it with wisdom and courage. So do check out Mind Story Inner Coach book to get your copy of the 5-step AVARA model. It's in the show notes, or it's also at the bottom of the free tab of mindstoryacademy.com. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening.